Right. So here I've got the, I believe, I hope, final texture for the train. And because this texture is so complicated and so detailed, well, I say detailed, it's mainly big blocks of solid color, but if you zoom in, you can see each individual bit picked out in different colors, and there are quite a few layers here. I didn't really have a main inspiration when it came to this color scheme. I saw the blue, I thought it looked good. I've just realized a nitpick I've got with it, which will actually show you how most of this process, if that's what you want to call it, is. I would add a new fill layer, I would add metal, and I would add metallic, and I'm thinking this roof here, it doesn't make sense for it to be blue. Because if you have a look on most actual steam locomotives, roofs are separate colours, typically to signify a different material made to be more weather resistant or water resistant. So then we go ahead and pick a colour, something roof-like, and you can see the entire model changes. So I'm quite happy with that. I imagine it would be something rough, or matte at least, because I can't imagine something that's designed to be weatherproof being all nice and sparkly and shiny for very long, especially considering it's directly behind the funnel all the way at the front there, and the whistle that's all the way here, which, if I had more time, I would add some weathering to indicate that soot and steam is coming out of those, but I don't. Um, so once we've got a colour and a metallic and roughness that I feel happy with, I think I'm not going to go for a metallic here. I typically add a black mask, and that's what all of these little bits are here. They're just singling out individual bits of the model and telling you where to put it. I'm already in the mode here, but typically when you apply a black mask, it puts you in paint mode, which allows you to quite simply paint the model. And it works, it's fine. I could very methodically go around and paint this entire cab with the colours that I want and even have a nice little gradient. But that's better for more natural things like trees and so on and so forth. Not something good for mechanical precision. So I typically hit this option here, and sometimes you're lucky. Sometimes you can just look at one object, let's say this little underneath bogey here, and you can hit this option, mesh fill. And then you click, and it covers the entire mesh in a color, unless it's bugging out, which it has been known to do with these little connecting bits in the wheels themselves. Um, so yeah, I could just click that, and all of a sudden the entire thing is presumably the right color. But I don't want the entire thing to be um, one brick of roof color, because I just want the roof to be the color. So I typically use polygon fill instead. You can use triangle fill, but it only fills half of it. I don't know why you would. So then I just go along around here, and you can even see it over here on the texture map itself. So I can just click and drag, and that's the entire roof coloured that easily. There is a little bit of overlap, as there often is with things like this, but if you do so, you can just crank it down to 0, click again, and all of a sudden, problem is solved. Um, and then once you've done picking out the bits that have done a little bit of overlap, you can go back in, add regular color, and quickly do this little bit here. There's a little bit of overlap there, so I'll remove that in a second. Go back to 0. You can see here the roof is now a different color compared to the rest of the locomotive. I think it looks better. That's personal preference. You could be looking at this thinking I've ruined the entire thing. Maybe I should add a bit more of a metallic to this. How about a 0.6? 0.6 looks about fine. And yeah, that's literally what I've done for each and every single different piece of this locomotive. If I decide to select every single bit and just turn off like everything, although it seems you can't group select and then turn off the eyes for every single colour, which is mildly annoying. But you can see here I've got like the background colour, which I'm going to actually change to include metal and roughness, and of course it doesn't change a thing, because of course it doesn't. But you can see here that as you just add more and more on top of the original base colour, it adds more and more detail. And I've forgot to hide the cab floor and the underbody. But yeah, that's what I've done across every single bit. Again, there wasn't any real form of inspiration for the colour scheme. I saw the blue, I thought the blue looked good. I like gold being used on engines quite a bit, as it shows some kind of royalty or prestige with the locomotive. I went with the typical black smoke box because it's typical. I went with gold buffers just because I thought it looked cool. I'm less so liking the gold coupling hooks, but if I just go around and keep fixing everything that I find wrong with this, I will be here for hours. So I think it's safe to say that I can call this little bit here and say quite happily that it explains my entire process of texturing the steam train. And of course, the same is going to apply to the tender. However, I forgot to mention something. There are actually other little textures that I've done before. And if I just let it load, give it a while. You can see this is much less textured than it is. And you might even notice that the unwrap is slightly different, because this great big line down here, and if you go to the other unwrap, that line is gone. That line, specifically, if I pull it back up again, nope, that's the wrong one. It pulls it up on the wrong tab. This line, right here, is actually, if I go ahead and scroll over, this little line here, and it's why you see all these little like indents and imprints on it from all the other meshes. It's because as I've coloured those, it's made an impact on this, and that was the result of a bad unwrap. So of course I had to discard this, go back into 3ds Max, fix the unwrap, which basically consisted of making sure this little tube here was packed in along with the rest of it, and then presumably I could move on. However, there was another issue where you can see I'm zoomed in really close on this whistle, and you can see I'm on the gold fill layer, but I can't seem, even if I go directly to polygon fill, I can't seem to change the top of this, and I believe if I remember correctly, is it this? No. Is it this? No. Well, it's some kind of tiny circle along here, and the problem essentially was that it was too small. It wouldn't allow you to texture it because it was just a little, it was too mini. And so I had to go back into 3ds Max and make the actual footprint for this particular piece larger. And then there's this one, where finally, the unwrap worked just fine. I didn't have to go back into 3ds Max with this one. However, if you have a look at the model itself, you can see the textures are even more simple than my other one. It's got very big golden wheels, but you can't really pick out the details. You can't really see, well, hang on, there's a crank pin there and another pin there, until you look at it from a certain angle. This is the same color, these are all the same color. It's basically not enough layers, not enough variants. And so if I made a copy of that particular one, and in fact, if you have a look at my videos from earlier talking about Unreal, like earlier in my channel, you can see that I even talk about how I've used that particular texture in Unreal already, and if I pull it up, I will have to unzip the project completely, which is a pain. Unit 8. Yep. Going to go ahead and... yes, nah, I can't. Back in Windows 10, in fact, no, in Windows 11 as well, you typically are able to click on the bottom right corner of the screen, and it minimizes everything. Why doesn't it do that when you got two monitors? I know, first world problems, but still, I feel like that's a fair thing to say. I feel like when you click on the bottom right corner, even if you've got two monitors, it should still bring you to your desktop, minimize everything exactly as it's done before. But evidently it doesn't. And then go ahead and bring this over here, bring you up here, bring you up here. Extract all. Because a thing that happens with Unreal is if you just put Unreal projects into your OneDrive, after an extended period of time, it breaks them. Because OneDrive, when you haven't opened a file for a while, it compresses it. And usually this is absolutely fine. With damn near everything else, this is absolutely fine. But something to do with Unreal really doesn't like how OneDrive compresses files. And so what you typically have to do is within the Unreal editor itself, zip the project, put that onto your OneDrive, and then undo the zipping. Which is a mild pain. You can see each of the different models here, but that's not what we're really interested in. If I go to my level environment, let it load. I know the lighting is horrible. The steam train comes from over here. Right. I will have to play it. But you can see the old material is being used on the actual project with the golden wheels and everything. And you can see that it's still a bit hard to pick out. It's easier than it is in Substance Painter, that's for sure, but it's still not easy. And so to rectify that, I completely remade the texture within Substance Painter. So now that I've completely remade it, I can actually export these textures. Unreal Engine 4 packed from cache. Let's not do that. I want to be going into Steam Train V2, yes. So Unit 8, Textures, Steam Train V2, select folder. Unreal Engine based on output texture based on each textures to each side. Oh! Nearly forgot. Baking the model. I don't truly know why we bake the model. I'll have to ask my tutor about that, because we were told the reason, but me and my infinite wisdom has completely forgotten it. But now that we've baked it, now I can export the textures. It's... Why is it going to Steam Train V1? No, go to Steam Train V2. Yes. Export, it exports everything. If I go into my File Explorer, scroll back up to Textures, Steam Train V2, extra large icons. You can see each of the different textures here. And this little thing is just a file that's automatically created when you open something in Substance Painter, and it goes away once you close Substance Painter. So I can in fact show it live. Go ahead, save, and now the file's gone. And I don't think I need this autosave, so I can get rid of that. And with all of that, I can go into my Unreal, I can go into Train, Steam Engine, I'm going to create a new folder, I'm going to call it Texture V2, that's 3. Going to go into here, first of all create a new material, call it Steam Train Texture V2. Going to go and bring up my files once more, click and drag over all of these and bring them into Unreal, which is rather simple, which is quite handy. Then with this little bit open, go into here, drag these out really quickly. I can't actually remember which is which, so let's open this up and have a look at the different names for them. Hopefully, I can't say stay on top, that's not exactly handy. So let's go ahead and say, yeah, that makes sense. So normals, you got the base colors, and you got the default material, occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So I believe the red goes to ambient occlusion, the green goes to roughness, and the blue goes to metallic. That is what I believe. Then you get the base color, just plug that into the RGB, and you get the normal, and you plug the normal into there. You can apply that, you can close this, bring this further into full screen, find the Steam engine again, go ahead and go into Content Drawer and click on the material, click and drag it onto the Steam engine. It is now changed, and if we go ahead and play, we can see the texture has changed for the Steam Train. It is slightly bugged because the running board isn't perfectly straight and it doesn't want to cause overlap, but it mostly works. And with all of those colours, I can of course do the exact same thing to the tender. So that's how I've textured things in Unreal. No, Substance Painter. That's how I import them into Unreal. I think that's mostly everything. This video is nearly 20 minutes long. I suppose I can end it here. Goodbye.